Hello everyone, we're going to demonstrate here how to repair a chip, which is a common problem on many countertop materials. This product is a Neolith product, which has a kind of a textured surface. Porcelains, sintered stones, quartz, they can come in a range of different types of finishes and textures, as well as natural stone. So this particular product here, though it's very durable, like many other countertop surfaces, it's still vulnerable to chipping. Common design is that 90-degree edge on many kitchen countertops, vanity countertops, and if something hits it just right, it's going to chip it. So the technician here is going to use a industry-grade epoxy that he's going to lay out a couple color palettes to custom blend a color that will match the material as best as possible. In many cases, the first, second, or even third time color mix is not successful. So it really takes some time, some patience, and over time, if any of you out there start to work with different colors, it's just trial and error. Eventually, it'll come to you. It does require, or you will gain a little bit of an artistic ability, but it does take a little patience to get the color down. Yellow, yeah, you may see that yellow is on that palette, but yellow, when it's mixed with in that spectrum of colors, can warm the tone, so to speak, of many colors. So he's got white, black, and yellow. And again, yellow is going to give you, it's going to soften it a bit. And I'm going to assume the technician here is going to play with the colors for a bit of time until he gets it just right. In fact, may have to remove it first or second time and then reapply it. This particular material with its texture is a little bit of a challenge. So further down the video, once the epoxy sets up, he's going to use a wire brush of all things to tap on it while it's still soft to give it that texture. So again, in terms of repair work, it all comes down to the colors and the actual finish of the material. So the chip here is about a third or maybe half the size of a dime. And again, common problem. So the first step is getting a base color down. Using the razor blade, he's going to play around with it a bit until he's confident and comfortable with the color before he adds the hardener. This will take a bit of time. Even though it's for one tiny small chip, it does take more time to get the colors just right. And you can see he's adding a little yellow, and that's may not show up in the video, but the yellow is going to warm up the color a bit. And then later, he'll probably add a bit of a darker color, because just from this video, this very moment, it looks a bit light. The chips, again, very common. Doesn't matter if it's porcelain, sintered stone, engineered stone, all the way down the line. There's a whole range and a whole group of countertop surfaces that everyone's using, and it really comes down to that 90-degree edge. Even with a slight bevel or a radius on the edge, it's going to help, but it's inevitable that if it catches it just right, it could be a coffee mug that may fall out of the upper cabinets, or a frying pan coming out of the dishwasher on the upward angle or upward direction. It catches that edge of the countertop and can chip it. Repair work is, again, does require a little time, patience, and eventually the technician will gain confidence with every repair that he does. So as the technician is on his second pass of applying the color is blending much better. Again, due to the first application, he just wasn't confident or content with the color. So again, it's a continuation of reapplying it. Further down, you're going to see that he's going to spread it evenly. And in the case where you have a textured material, what's happening is that the excess epoxy is going to settle on the surface. So he's going to be mindful when it comes time to add in the hardener. You have about a minute to 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes max, depending on temperature and how much hardener you add, of working time. So what he's going to do is he's not going to take everything off entirely. He's going to take a wire brush, and while that epoxy is still relatively soft, he's going to kind of pick away and score at the finish of this Neolith product. And then also take a wire brush and just kind of gently tap at it to mimic the texture that's produced from the factory. The amount of tapping, the amount of pressure that he's applying, all has to be taken in consideration to create that perfect look. And again, trial and error, everyone. This doesn't come to you overnight, but it will come to you, and it's just a matter of being patient and playing around with it. So after he tapped it, he's scraping off the excess, and from there he's going to probably do a final wipe down with acetone. What the acetone will do is going to kind of re-soften or re-emulsify the epoxy, so it kind of stalls the hardening process and it gives you more working time. So he's already dipped that rag in some acetone, and again, very gently playing with it, modifying it. Lighting is critical, so depending on where your repairs are being done, you may want to bring an extra self-standing flashlight or an overhead light. Always a good idea to have ample lighting. So right now he is taking the razor blade, holding it vertically, and it's a kind of a commonly done in the trade where you take a razor blade, stand it up straight, and just shave back and forth, left and right. So literally just like, taking a razor to your skin, you're just very gently just taking off little bits amount of excess epoxy that's surrounded around the chip. So right now from this angle, he's not quite there in the color. He's going to play around with it a bit more. Looks like he's setting up for some finish work with a sandpaper. The grit here is probably a 120, maybe 220. You don't need to get any more aggressive than a 120 grit. So when you're sanding, again, depending on the type of material and the finish of the material, your abrasives are going to range based on your knowledge of the material. So you want to be mindful not to use something too abrasive, but also have something abrasive enough where it's going to be effective and do the job. So yeah, this is a 120. I'm just going through my notes. This is a 120 grit sandpaper, and he may stop there. May have to go up to a 220 just to smooth it out a bit more. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a white spot on that corner that's kind of showing here, but as he moves further down, he'll continue to feather and blend it a bit more. It looks like he's just going to cut that little portion off and just continue to work on it until that chip is, the ultimate goal is to make it look like it was never there. So it, again, takes some time to get the color just right. The technician is continuing to take off excess color. So this one by now is already hardening up. I can tell by the shaving. So now he had mixed up another batch of a darker color. So in some cases, it's okay to get different tones. Establishing a base coat, because once you add the hardener, you pretty much you're committed to repairing it. So the technician here went back with a different color, and in this particular case, having two tones can benefit because you're going to get some transparency, or that original color will telegraph a bit per se through this top color. With engineered materials, sintered, quartz, all the engineered products. Within that, when I say engineered, it's all the man-made products. The more movement, the more natural look you can create, the better. As over the years, we find it being more difficult to repair engineered material than natural stone, especially stones with a lot of movement, like a marble with veining. Any material that has a lot of patterns or wild movements in a range of colors are very easy to repair. The colors that are very consistent, like this here, or very solid and consistent in its pattern, are very difficult, and whites are even more difficult. You're just dealing with the physics and the characteristics of color and the texture. So if you zoom in or take a closer look, you'll see some of that lighter backdrop. So that's going to kind of create that highs and lows, or salt and pepper. Again, you're going to see that there's a little bit of a contrast in this material, and we're just dealing with an incremental variance. So again, the more movement, the more patterns, or the more distractions that are occurring on these materials, the easier it is to repair it. So this is getting better and better as he works on it. The last wipe with the rag, with the acetone, wet the epoxy, kind of darkened it a bit, so it's gonna lighten up a bit and slowly blend in. So with every stroke, from the sandpaper to the razor blade, he is ultimately just literally shaping that epoxy to the contour. The technician here is getting to his final stage of the repair. He's giving it a few more swipes with sandpaper, relatively lightly. Probably is not content with the finish just yet. Probably going to rub a bare hand across it. So as he removed his glove and using his bare skin, literally is running his fingers across the factory finish and comparing it to the feel and touch of the repair. So he's actually probably used a smoother sandpaper. Originally started with 120. That was a 220 finish. And again, running your bare skin across it is going to give you an idea of what that finish is going to feel like. So, the purpose is to mimic the material itself with this type of repair, to clone that material, whether it's an engineered product or a natural stone. It will take time, over time, to eventually get it down. And looks like he's doing it again because he's just not happy with it. So he'll continue to play around with it until he gets to a point where he feels that it's as good as it possibly can be. And fortunately, the chip is so small, they're very hard to find, and you'll see towards the end of this video, it's going to look pretty finished once it's done. So there's a still image of it. And there you have it, how to do a chip repair. Thank you.